Hello everyone and welcome back to our UI UX design class. I hope you all had a chance to watch our previous video on repetition as a principle of design. If you missed it, please find the link in the description below and watch it. In today's class, we are continuing our teaching on the principles of design with emphasis on proportion. But before we begin, I would like to take a moment to thank all of you for your engagement and enthusiasm in our design classes. Thanks for your likes and comments, which go a long way in encouraging us and helping us refine our teachings. I'm sure you are seeing some of the observations and requests you have made, so please keep them coming. If you are new here, please subscribe so you do not miss any of our classes in future. My name is Esther, a passionate UI UX designer with a mission to empower aspiring designers like you to create intuitive, visually stunning and user-centered digital products. So whether you are a beginner looking to enter the field or a seasoned professional seeking to enhance your skills, this channel is designed to provide you with valuable insights and practical knowledge. Let's quickly recap on the principles we discussed in the last class. I would give us a moment to remember the topic and what we learned. Yes, it is the principle of repetition. If that was what you said, that's really nice. We discussed that repetition refers to the deliberate reuse of consistent elements like shapes, colors, textures, patterns, font types, grids, and layouts throughout a composition. We talked about the different aspects of repetition in design, and we summarized them to be repetition of shapes and forms, repetition of colors, repetition of textures and patterns, repetition of font styles, repetition in grid system, and repetition of principles. We then summarized that repetition enhances visual consistency, it strengthens visual hierarchy, and contributes to the overall success of a design. Repetition should not be overused, so please in your design, try balancing it with other principles of design to achieve excellence and elegance in your work. In today's video, we will be continuing with the fundamental principles that drive impactful visual experiences, and we will be considering the principle of proportion. You see, one fundamental principle that plays a crucial role in creating visually pleasing and intuitive interface is the principle of proportion. What itself is proportion? Proportion refers to the relationship between the various elements in a design, such as your size, spacing, placements of different components or elements. So by applying the principle of proportion effectively, designers can achieve balance, harmony, and a sense of visual hierarchy in their design, ultimately enhancing the overall user experience of a product. Proportion in design is establishing balanced and visually appealing relationships between the elements. It involves determining the appropriate size, spacing, and positioning of various design elements such as your buttons, your text, images, and white spaces. When these elements are proportionately arranged, the design feels harmonious and well structured, which helps your users navigate and interact with the interface more effectively. How do we make use of proportion in design? One way to make use of proportion in design is your golden ratio. The golden ratio is also called the divine proportion. It is a mathematical concept used in art and design for centuries. It is a ratio of approximately 1:1.618, and it is believed to represent aesthetically pleasing proportions found in nature and the human body. By applying the golden ratio to design, designers can create visually balanced compositions that feel natural and visually appealing to their users. So you can use the golden ratio in button placements, image sizing, typography spacing, and even your margins. Proportion has a long history of defining beauty in art and design. Let's quickly delve into the history of the golden ratio. In ancient Egypt, you would notice that most of their designs used the grid system for their wall art that helps them establish scale and proportion and also illustrate hierarchy. The ancient Greeks were fascinated with the proportions of the human body, and the golden ratio was used to create perfect proportion for the Gutenberg Bible. How do you use the golden ratio? When you set a rectangle, putting it at maybe a 1000 by 1000 pixels, that is a square, the next thing you want to do is to make a golden rectangle. So what you do is that you multiply the width of your square by the golden ratio of 1.618. So as you can see, this is what I'm doing. I am multiplying 1000 by 1.618. So it has given me a width of 1618, and that is called a golden rectangle. The next thing you want to do is that you want to get the perfect square of 1000 by 1000 and then start your journey to the golden ratio. So what you want to do is you want to divide each of the squares by 1.618. So when you divide one of the squares by 1.618, it gives you the perfect proportion of the 1000 square that you had before. Then you continue dividing the squares by 1.618. If you see what I'm doing here, I have created about 4 rectangles. It has given me 4 different sizes. So you continue at that, dividing your sizes by 1.618. So what you are doing is you are dividing your golden rectangle to perfect square, and from your perfect square, you are now getting smaller golden squares. And this is the golden ratio. So it helps you divide your sizes using 1.618 to generate perfect sizes for your design. Another way to make use of proportion, because the golden ratio is not the only way to make use of proportion in design. So another way to make use of proportion in design is by applying the 8-point grid system. What is the 8-point grid system? First and foremost, what is grid system? Grid system provides a framework for aligning and distributing elements evenly across the interfaces or across your design. So by using grids, designers can ensure that elements are placed in a visually pleasing and organized manner, which contributes to the overall proportion and consistency of the design. The 8-point grid system was first introduced by Google's Material Design Specification. So you want to use a grid that is composed of 8 pixels by 8 pixels square. As you design on top of this grid, You want to ensure that all the elements snap to the grid. So you are using multiples of 8 to define your dimensions, to define your padding and margin of both block and inline elements. You are using multiples of 8 for your spaces. You are using multiples of 8 for your margin. You are using multiples of 8 for your texts and so many others, so that all your elements can snap to the grid. The question that most people will ask is, why do we have to use the 8-point grid system? The 8-point grid system is most widely adopted for two primary reasons. The most common one is that screen dimensions are divisible by 8, making your design very clear to majority of the devices that we are making use of now, so that there is no split pixel on any of your design. The recommended base font size of the web is 16 pixels. So even your developers, when they are working with REM on the web page for your fonts, they use 16 pixels, which is 8 multiplied by 2. If you use the 8-point grid system, even from your fonts or from your major designs, you will discover that most of your elements are very much aligned and the proportion is well placed and perfect. There are so many benefits of using the 8-point grid system, of which that's something I also use when I'm designing. In fact, I basically do not even use the golden ratio. I most of the time use the 8-point grid system because it helps my work get perfect alignment. But you know that there are also exceptions, so you can still make use of even numbers. You can still make use of font sizes of 10, font sizes of 12, font sizes of 14, font sizes of 18. You can still make use of those. Those are exceptional font sizes that you can make use of. But for your shapes, for your spaces, you want to keep to the 8-point grid system. Somebody might ask the question, why not 4 points? You see, the Google Material Design Spec does recommend using 4 points for smaller components such as your iconography, which are your icons, and then typography. You know, I mentioned that before. However, the majority of UI elements can still be handled by the 8-point grid system. So you can start with that. Look at what we have here. We have spacings of 8. We have spacings here of 8 as well. We have spacings of 32. We have margin of 16. And this is you using the 8-point grid system in your design, which gives you amazing proportion, and even good alignment. Another way to make use of proportion in your design is to make use of good white space. White space, or also called negative space, is the empty space between elements in a design. This helps you enhance visual clarity. It focuses your user's attention and creates a sense of proportion and balance in your design. White space also contributes to the overall aesthetics of a design, giving it a clean and sophisticated look. So if you want to go from having a meager design to a luxurious and amazing design, you want to make use of good white spaces, or what they call negative space. You also want to make use of aspect ratio and good image placements. Considering aspect ratios and placements of images in a UI UX design is very, very important in maintaining proportion in design. So by appropriately sizing and placing your images, we can ensure that they fit seamlessly within the overall layout and create visually pleasing compositions that enhances the user's experience. That was why we talked about the 8-point grid system. That was why we talked about the golden ratio. Finally, to create good proportion in design, you want to create visual hierarchy. One of the key aspects of proportion in UI UX design is establishing a clear visual hierarchy. Visual hierarchy refers to the arrangement of elements in a way that guides users' attention and emphasizes the most important information or actions. So by using proportion effectively, we can create a visual hierarchy that leads users through the interface, highlighting the essential elements and minimizing visual clutters. From the image we have here, you have seen how visual hierarchy shows you what is most important. How do you achieve good proportions? Number one is to place like elements together that are similar or have a common feature. Place like elements that have similarities, elements that go together. Place them together. Number two is that you can create major and minor areas in your design, as equal parts can quickly become monotonous and boring. If all your designs have the same size, like the text we have here, which is achieving good proportion, if all your text is having the same size as what we have in achieving good proportions, then your work is going to look lumbar, it's going to look clumped up. However, the size differences must not be so significant that the parts appear unrelated and as a result out of harmony with one another. So you want to see how to manage your spaces and your sizes such that even though they are different sizes, they still look or they still speak as one. Another way to achieve proportion is that the arrangement of space should be so that the eye does not perceive a formal mathematical relationship. For example, it is best to avoid dividing the composition into halves, quarters, and thirds, because a subtle relationship creates a more dynamic design. If all you are doing is to divide your text sizes by 2, divide by 4, divide by equal halves or quarters and thirds, then your design would look so mathematical. But when you are putting subtle divisions, subtle spaces, it's going to look so fluid, it's going to look so dynamic. And when you have a dynamic design, then your work is going to look amazing, it's going to look luxurious. You know that there is a mathematical calculation in a design, but it would still look fluid and dynamic. So that's why we have talked about the golden ratio and we have talked about the 8-point grid system. The principle of proportion is a fundamental concept in UI UX design that greatly influences the overall user experience of a particular product. So by understanding and applying proportion techniques such as size and scale, grid systems, white spaces, image placements, designers can create visually appealing, harmonious, and user-friendly interfaces. The effective use of proportion not only enhances the aesthetics of a design, but also improves usability and navigation, leading to a more satisfying user experience. Did you know that the golden ratio is a proportion often used in design to create aesthetically pleasing compositions? The ratio, also known as divine proportion or phi, is approximately 1.618. So please don't forget that. Your golden ratio is 1.618 and you can use it in your design. Remember that these principles are not strict rules, but rather they are guidelines to help you make informed design decisions. So please experiment, play around, and see how these principles can be applied creatively to suit your specific design goals. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you found this class insightful and inspiring. If you have enjoyed this class and want to stay updated with our other design lessons, please make sure to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share it with others who may find it valuable. Please, your support helps us grow and reach more aspiring designers like yourself. Thank you all for joining me in this class. Let's continue to learn, explore, and until next time, please keep designing, keep creating, and keep making the world a better place, one user experience at a time. Take care and see you soon.